for about a month, and thought I'd throw it out there and see what people thought. But first, I just wanted to throw something in here for extra. We lost Ted Kerber last month, so I just thought I would pay a little bit of a tribute to him and put him up there on the screen for people who remember Ted and all of his surveying talks and all the great stuff he'd done in the past, several decades. Okay, let's just talk about apps on phones and other platforms. Last year, HP did apps for the iPhone for some Voyager machines. And one thing that was interesting about that to me was that they didn't just settle on the simple emulator of the app. They extended it somewhat. And an example being that if you turned the phone the other way, you got a simple scientific going the other way. So they kind of bent the rules a little bit on their own and enhanced the application beyond just the machine from the 1980s, which was a nice thing. Let me go back a little bit. There had been talk about bringing back machines for a long time, and during that time, a lot of people, kind of fantasized what they'd like to see, and they drew up some things and threw them out there on the HP Museum forum, and there would be levels of excitement, and then it would die down, and it would go up and down. And one of the real serious people who had laid out some ideas for extending machines is Walter Bond, and he continues to do that today, and he must be a whiz at doing graphics on PCs, because he does some amazing drawings. Back in 2008, if you recall, at our conference, we presented some of his ideas, and one of them was essentially an extended 15C, which he nicknamed the 15S. In a 15C case where he substituted dot matrix display, and he added some more keys, and a very extensive analysis of what he wanted to add, and he had a very long manual, and it was quite impressive. More recently, and we're going to talk about this later in the evening, Walter and a guy from Australia named Paul Dale have been working on a firmware change for the 30B to repurpose it into a high-end scientific machine. And this is real exciting for me, and we'll go into detail on that. But the idea is scientific machines can be extended beyond the traditional way it had been done in the past, certainly beyond the 35S, even beyond the 15C. Further enhancements, further app enhancements that have appeared, non-HP app enhancements. Most of us here know Thomas Oken, who has done a fantastic program called Free42, which appeared on, I guess, the PC and then iPacs under Windows, Pocket PC, and there's an iPhone version. And thankfully, I'm very happy to read that he is working on an Android version as well. And at least one major enhancement that I'm aware of is that it essentially gave you a 42 with a lot more memory, if you needed it. Another enhancement, even on top of Free42 by Byron Foster, it's called 42 RPN Calc, was that he extended the capability of the simulated screen on the calculator. So in the case of a stack, you could choose to choose to show more levels, or in program mode, you could hide the top row of keys and see more lines of your program at once. But the idea is, you're on a more flexible platform. Why not take advantage of this space and do more things that you couldn't normally do on standard hardware? So the talk is sort of turned into a plea to HP to go in those directions. So the thought I had was, well, if the screen's even larger, you could do even more things. You could have more flexibility. And some of those areas would be enhanced simulated keyboards and screens. Another one, which one of my pet peeves is menu labyrinths that are not completely necessary, and some of that can be simplified if the keyboard was made a little more complex. And certainly on the simulated screen, more data, more graphics could be displayed at one time. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the past with regard to menu, what I call menu madness, or perhaps just large menu labyrinths. The first machine from HP that had soft key menus was the 18C Business Consultant, which appeared in June of 1986. That calculator, it was revolutionary in many ways. It was the first machine that had an RPL operating system underneath, used a solder chip. It did a lot of amazing things. It had IR output, obviously a dual keyboards, some real progress there. But one of the things that bothered me so much was that while the keyboard on the right side, which is the traditional keyboard you would use, is while it has a shift key, it has relatively few shifted positions. Why put a shift key in there if you can't take advantage of it? And the result is you have a main menu with these 6 functions, and then below, here's an example of some of those functions and all the different levels of menus underneath. And the word has always been, the business user should not be intimidated by a complex keyboard, but as a result, to get to something down here, you got to press lots and lots of keys to get there, and that, good luck to them. Just something I don't like. But it's an opportunity that could be improved using apps on tablets. Another simpler example would be with the 50G. Let's say I want to get to the combination key. I got to do left shift math. That takes me to here. Then I'm in the math menu. Each of these is a submenu. But I've got to get to the probability submenu, which is on the next page. So then I've got to hit the next key, which takes me here, and then I go probability, and it finally takes me to a menu that's got the combination key, and I can press it. So that's 5 keystrokes to get there. If there had been an opportunity to get this whole menu displayed at the same time, I would reduce the keystroke count and obviously get the combination a little simpler. So the thought had run through my mind, and I realized I think about these things, they come and go, they come and go, they come and go. How many people here were at the 1989 conference at Triton College in Melrose Park, Illinois? It was sponsored by the CHIP chapter, the Chicago group. It was a one-day affair. I think it was in June. We celebrated the 10th anniversary of the 41, and it rained all day. I guess maybe just...
I guess you weren't.
Well, yeah, I presented at the conference. The big thing in consumer electronics was the Sharp Wizard, the first Wizard, the OZ7000. In any case, the 28S had already come out, and we found out later that they had hoped that the 48SX would have been available in time, but it just turned out that it wasn't to be. They had hoped to use it to partially celebrate the 50th anniversary of HP, and they weren't ready, and it didn't appear until March of the following year. But in the meantime, everybody's talking about 28s, and I do my fantasizing as always, and one thing I suggested was a 28 type of machine where instead of the left side keyboard, which is what you see here, which had menus and all these shifted positions, how about, similar perhaps to a Sharp Wizard or a touchscreen machine, how about make the whole left side of the clamshell a full-size touchscreen? And you see all these math menus here, they all appear down here in positions, and when you press one, such as array, the top half gives you all of those functions at one time. So now you need an array function. They're all sitting there. It basically allows you to reduce keystrokes. And of course, a touchscreen of this size could do, 1,000 other things like QWERTY keyboards and large graphs and other things. But at least one benefit would be to simplify the keystroke count and present you with more functions at one time. So thinking back, we're 21 years later, and wow, we've got big touch screens now in the marketplace, and they're floating around. So what if somebody, such as HP for instance, put a 50G app on an iPad? And here's just my cockamamie scheme. what if you put a 50G app on an iPad where the left side is the original 50G keyboard, and I tweaked it just slightly. And you get a very large area for the simulated screen where you could do a lot more. And on the right side, you get rows and rows and rows of keys that could serve as soft keys. So in the case of, I want a combination key, I choose Shift Math, and now I get all the functions in the vector, the matrix, the list, the hyperbolic, and the real submenus simultaneously. And my combination key, you know, I may need to hit next, and it'll take me to all the remaining ones, but I've got like positions for dozens and dozens of functions at one time. So it kind of fits the bill. It simplifies keystroke efficiency, and it gives an opportunity for a lot more stuff to be displayed at one time. And in fact, instead of F1 through 6, if you could continue that across from 7 through 12, then custom menus or variable lists or those kind of things could be enhanced as well with a, you know, with a simulated soft key menu that was 12 keys in length, and it would go on and on. So the idea was a challenge for HP to continue to do good things, do more apps on more platforms. It would certainly eliminate the issue with foreign manufacturers and all that stuff. Let the company that makes the tablet worry about the hardware, and let, you know, HP worry about the software. Again, more keys, fewer keystrokes, more soft keys for user use. Larger objects could be displayed, more complex graphics, better input forms. And I guess, you know, the next step, even beyond that, would be to, assuming that there wouldn't be no more dedicated hardware to do things beyond the capability of, say, a 50G class machine, that perhaps it would make sense for them to start developing calculator apps, you know, brand new apps from scratch that go, you know, far beyond in various directions, because the real estate is there to give you, you know, whatever you want. Does anybody remember a real old program called Pinball Construction Set?
Yes.
Where you could, you know, build a pinball machine? Well, you know, maybe a 50G type app could have a, you know, a menu construction set where you could supply maybe a list of lists that had object names and size of icons, essentially building like a KML file within your user program if necessary, and it would just, you know, throw up there almost like a web page where you know, under program control, design your own keyboard interface, and all that's possible with a screen that's large. And despite the fact that Gene thinks I'm way off base, I think for a year from now, we're probably going to see between 10 and 20 companies offering tablet computers, and you know, we don't know what'll stick, but it sounds like there's a whole lot of products coming very soon. Samsung's already announced products. I think Arcos has some, and you know, HP's right around the corner. So expect there to be more opportunities for this kind of stuff, more ways that HP can expand complex calculators onto, you know, onto bigger screens and more powerful platforms in the future.